Thank you. Well, welcome everyone to our third in a series for the Applebaum College Black History Month series. Today we are having two wonderful guest speakers who are about to speak to us on Black women in leadership, our struggles, our determination, and our successes. So I'll introduce them both and then I'll let them talk. Our first speaker is Professor Janetta Greer, who attended Wayne State University for both her undergraduate and graduate degrees. These degrees include a Bachelor of Science in Radiation Therapy Technology and a Master of Science in Community Medicine. Her passion for teaching comes from working as a radiation therapist for over 30 years and helping train students who wanted to become radiation therapists. She believes compassion is the key to success in life, not only in teaching, but in all things she does. Outside of work, she is a lifelong learner. She participates in training sessions offered through her Academy Society of Radiologic Technologists, the occupational therapy workshops here, OTL workshops, and she does mentorship programs here at the university. On a personal level, she enjoys church, helping her nieces and nephews, spoiling her niece and great niece, who I think she just had to put out a fire for, and good movies, and she enjoys shopping as her cardiovascular exercise. Our second speaker is very well known here at the college, Dr. Doreen Head from the Department of Occupational Therapy. She has been a faculty member for over 26 years and has served as a program director for the last 13 years, a feat which is not accomplished by many. She also happened to serve 2 years as the interim chair of the Department of Healthcare Sciences. Doreen is a lifelong Detroiter. She began her education in occupational therapy over 40 years ago at the Wayne County Community College. She attended in Eastern Michigan for her BS in OT and then became a graduate of Wayne State in the Master of Science in Occupational Therapy and later a PhD in sociology. Her lengthy career has included a variety of mental health settings, working for children, adolescents, and adults. So on that note, I turn it over to our two dynamic speakers. Take it away, ladies.
Good afternoon, and I thank you, and I'm honored to be here to speak with everyone. I don't know if you want me to start off just giving a little background about myself. If that's the case, then I can do that. Um, I started off initially thinking I wanted to be a neonatal nurse, actually. And then I had an aunt who said, "Oh, well, you want to be a nurse? Why don't you be a doctor?" So I said, "Okay, what doctors work with children?" So it was a pediatrician. Then I started off pre-med to become a pediatrician. Well, make a long story short, after taking a few chemistry courses, I decided, well, maybe let me think about this. Maybe there's something else I could do. And then my grandmother was diagnosed with breast cancer, and I wanted to know more about um, radiation therapy because that's what she was getting for her treatment. So I looked up radiation therapy and began my shifting over to radiation therapy, which I believe was really chosen for me because once I got into the field and started working, I found out that that was actually my passion. And as far as teaching goes, as a young child, I was the oldest of my siblings and also my cousins, my first cousin. So obviously, oldest grandchild, the oldest child. So always the one who had to, either babysit, even at a young age, at 9, I was babysitting probably 6 or 7 of my younger siblings and cousins, but I would have school with them. So I would teach. I was the teacher, of course. I was the one that was going to be in control, the boss, as they would say. So my grandmother would always say, "Oh, that girl's going to be a teacher." But in my mind, I did not think that I was going to be a teacher. But here I am teaching. And to give you a little background about how I came into this position, I actually I was working as a radiation therapist, as Sarah mentioned, for almost 30 years. I did in between those 30 years, I left the hospital setting and went to work with a doctor in doing more administrative work. He was starting his own HMO for radiation therapy. I did that for about 3 years, and then the company closed. When the company closed, I called my boss, or actually one of my, I say mentors, and I also call her my sister, God sister. I said, you know, the job is this, they're closing. He's decided to sell the company. You know, are there any more positions there for therapy? So she spoke with the our boss, the boss there, and she said, sure, you know, you left in good standing. You know, of course we'll make a position. You know, we have a position for you. Well, I just kind of rolled right back into therapy, but I had been gone for 3 years, so I did not get my seniority back. So 14 years later, they were downsizing, and I was the one that was being laid off after being in the field for basically almost 30 years. That was in 2017. So I was laid off. I worked contingent for a year. I taught at the elementary schools. Um, I tried to get full time, but that was not to be. And I kept saying, well, Lord, what is going on? You know, I'm applying for these jobs. I'm getting letters saying I'm not qualified. I'm like, really? And just to backtrack, even before that, I applied at my as a radiation therapist. I wanted to be the manager. They told me I wasn't qualified. I'm like, I have my master's. And I was a little frustrated. I'm like, "Your Lord, you let me get this master's and I can't even use it." Then I just kind of forgot about it. And then I was laid off. And I tried for positions, even with the master's. No, either you're too qualified or you don't have enough experience for this. So that went on for about a year. I got a call from a friend who's a radiation therapist, and he said, "Well, you know, they're looking for someone to teach a few classes at the in the program." And I said, "Oh, well, sure." He said, "Well, just a few classes, and the program is slated to close within a year." And I said, "Well, it's no big deal. You know, I'm not getting called in for any jobs. I'm not, you know, they're not working me, not giving me as many hours at the clinics. So sure, I'll teach a few classes." And then my sweet boss, now Miss Sarah, she called me on the phone and we talked a little bit. And she said to me, "Well, we're looking for a director. And would you be interested in that?" And I'm like, "Oh my goodness, that would be like a dream come true." And I said, "Sarah, I'm going to have to tell you the testimony one day about you offering me this position." Because during the time that I was laid off, I just didn't know what and when something would open up. Although I trust and I believe that it would, but just not knowing when. And when Sarah offered me that position, I just knew that it was something that the Lord had. I have to say, I stand on my faith. I know that it was God who opened that door for me. She said, "We have a position, but it's not going, it's only for a year now. So just to let you know up front." I said, "Well, no problem. Basically in my head, what else am I going to do?" And so I in the position, I'm working, and then fast forward, they decided, well, we're going to keep the program. The program is going to stay. So after, working a few months, um, I'm here today. That was in 2018, and the program is still going strong. So I'm so grateful for the opportunity to work at Wayne State, to be the director here for the radiation therapy program. Originally, when I applied for the program, I was an alternate. I was not selected with the first batch of students. So I was an alternate, and then when I completed the program, when I took the boards, I did not pass my boards on the first try. I had to take my boards for the second time. At some point in time through my childhood, I had heard that uh, comments that me and my brother and sister were not going to do much. And I'm here to tell you today that if you stay faithful, stay focused, and keep your keep believe in yourself, and know that you can do all things. And I say all things, and I'll say for me, all things through Christ who strengthens you. And that's a plaque that I actually have on my wall at work when I feel like I can't do anymore, or I'm feeling like, I'm getting a little frustrated. I just look at that sign, and that's what keeps me going. And on that note, I'm going to let Doreen talk a little bit about herself, because I can go on and on about, how good I feel that I have been blessed, and I have so much to be thankful for.
Thank you, Janetta. That is quite an introduction to what is quite a life. And I know we have a lot of questions that we'll want your thoughts on about how hard it was. You made it sound like you had faith, you persevered, and you're so honest with everyone about how you don't succeed the very first time. But I know you have some stories to tell about some barriers that may have been put in your way because you're Black and because you're a woman in all of these steps through your early school and college. So I'll let you think a little bit on those thoughts while we turn to Doreen to introduce herself, and we'll continue the conversation.
Thank you. Thank you, everyone, for having us today. We're very excited. And Janetta and I are kindred spirits and sisters in Christ, and we share a lot of some of the same parallels in our journey. And I just first want to thank all of the people who paved the way for me and opened the door for me, who saw something in me. Susan Esdale, Georgiana Hertzberg, who asked me to give my first guest lecture in mental health, Suzetta McCree, who hired me, Howard Normile, who appointed me as chair, and Carmen Brown, who mentored me, and even Kathy Lysak, who was there. We've been here about the same many years, and who in her leadership has helped me to be a good leader. I think longevity helped me to be in this position. Because I'm still here, right? And other people are not. So Dr. Parnell, Regina Parnell, and I are some of the two of the longest running faculty around, but also my skill set and the experiences that I had in my life as well. My failures. I too was told that I wasn't going to amount to much. When I went to school at Eastern, I went to Wayne County Community College because I was working at a place called Plymouth Center for Human Development. It was on 5 Mile and Sheldon Road. It's not there now, but I was a direct care staff there. And my job was to take care of people who were severely and emotionally and mentally impaired. And I took care of them, and I would take them to the OT, for their treatment. And she was a COTA, and then she had her white coat on and everything. And I said, "Oh, what are you doing?" And she told me Wayne County, and that's where I went. But while I was there, I met Ruth Hansen, who was a professor and program director at Eastern. And she said, "I see something in you. Why don't you finish this program and come to Eastern?" So I did that. But while I was there, one of my brothers was murdered, and I took it really hard. And it was August 18th, 1982. I was in anatomy class, didn't do well. I failed anatomy, got kicked out the program. So I went to Ruth, and Ruth made a deal with me. And she said, "If you get it together and I let you back in, you better show out." And I did that. And so here I am today. So if it wasn't for people who who see something in you, that's what we have to do as leaders, as teachers, to see those things, those struggles that our students go through, and help them along the way as well.
Your story is so full and rich, Doreen, and there's so much behind everything you say. I love what you say about one person taking a moment to notice something in a student or a colleague and just fiercely going with it and trusting it. I think your honesty also reminds all of us how many challenges there are outside the workplace that affect our students, our staff, and our faculty. We're going to circle right back to you, but I want to switch back to Janetta if you would be ready and
Yes, I am.
willing to say a little bit more about what life was like as a Black student. Were there lots of Black students? Were there no Black students? How were you treated? Was it right? Was
Well, if I could just be honest with you, it was not. And I think one of my, she's on here with me. I don't know if she want me to call her name, but we became very close in the program. We graduated together. Um, we worked at a particular hospital. I won't name the hospital, but when we would come in, they would have little writings on just our pictures, little remarks about us. Um, you were not really to me it was every little thing that you did, it looked like it stood out 100 times more than the other students. It just, you kind of felt really like you felt, I'll just say stupid. That's how they made you feel, like you didn't know anything, that you were not smart, and why are you here? I even had one time a group of uh, therapists, they decided they were going to teach me a lesson and give me a D. They got together and the gentleman told me, I told them to mark you really hard, to not give you an easy grade, to pretty much to shake you up. And I just felt like I was really trying so hard, um, asking what I needed to do. And, I started off, I was getting A's and B's, and then all of a sudden you're not doing well. You're messing up, you don't know what you're doing. And again, as faith, I have to always go back to that, because that is what got me through. And I just said, Lord, I am doing everything I know to do. I know how to do. I don't know what else to do. And I just said, I know what I'm doing. Please open their eyes so that they could see. And those were my exact words, so they can see that I know what I'm doing. I went into clinic not less than a few days after saying that prayer. And I'm hearing, oh, Janetta, you're doing such a wonderful job, blah, 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 blah. And I'm thinking in my head, I'm doing the same thing I was doing yesterday. So I'm just saying, sometimes, you can do all humanly possible, but then sometimes, you just got to wait on, for me, that higher power. And I know that I have skills, but I know where those skills came from. But they weren't seeing those skills. So I had to ask to open their eyes so that they could see that I knew what I was doing. And it just, to me, I was just like, wow, I'm doing the same thing I was doing yesterday, but okay, I'll take it. So it wasn't easy. And again, like I said, I was an alternate, but I thank God that I was the alternate. I had to study harder, and I feel like I'm not a good test taker. For number one, I seem like I just, I can study all I can, and then when it comes to the test, for whatever reason, looks like I'm not always putting back out what I know. However, I just kept going at it, and just studying and giving it my all, and still, asking for help for those that could help me, and praying on it. And my second time I took the boards, I passed. And I think that I'm a very good therapist. I've been told by my patients, when I treat a patient, I don't just, it's not just about the disease for me, it's about that whole patient. I believe that you treat every patient, I don't care their color, their financial background. And I would always tell even the students, every patient is a VIP. So you treat all the patients the same. And that's what I stand on. And I go back to, as Sarah mentioned, compassion. I think that's very important. And even though I had some hard times from some therapists, there were those therapists there that had compassion and, took me by the hand and helped me through it. And even the director that uh, was before me, he was one of those gentlemen, and he was white, and he helped me, and he would tell me little tips on what to do. So, I had, it was difficult, yes, but still there was someone there that was willing to take a chance and give a hand and help.
And maybe the best part about some of that adversity is how much it's grown in your professional outlook and appreciation. And now as a role model, you are giving it and sharing it with others. Although it would have been nice to skip over some of the adversities, I'm sure.
Yes, you just, I always say there's always someone worse off than you. You know, I was given an opportunity. My family, they were, you know, were great, a great support. You know, like Doreen and I both shared when we spoke at another event. We both lost our mothers young. Well, I lost my mom at 5. And so, you know, with that in itself, you know, not having your mom, someone to, you know, go to and confide in on things that girls like to confide into their moms about, you know, all of that, you know, was, you know, a little difficult, you know, coming up and even going through the program. But I try not to dwell on those things because I know that there's a reason behind everything and we don't always understand it, but it's still for our good.
Doreen, your words mean much more to everyone than mine. I'm going to slowly slip out of this conversation and let the two of you continue talking.
Thank you, Kathy. And like Janetta, I too was told, well, you're only good enough to be a COTA. You know, just stick with that. And so when you hear those words, it makes you feel discouraged. It makes you feel less than, dumb, stupid. I failed. I can't do this. And so it really weighs on you. But because um, I was resilient and I was going to, no matter what, I'm going to show and I'm going to do this. You know, I was blessed to be in a profession of occupational therapy because I met lots of challenges and trauma in my life. And as Janetta mentioned, I was born in 1958, just 9 years before the riots in the city of Detroit. At 5 years, I was born of a teenage mom who was white, and she had her own challenges in her life. And so she gave me up for adoption at 5 years old. So I was adopted, and in my wonderful family that I had, my father and my mother, but that mother at 13, when I was 13, she passed. And my brother, who was also adopted, had schizophrenia. And so I would lived in this household, and my dad worked at the plant really hard, but he worked midnight shift. And, you know, I was out there. And then when I was 16, he remarried. And then that brother who became my brother was the one who died. He was a hairstylist and we were really close. And that was just devastating for me. And then my father married again, and that mom died. And it was just so much trauma. And so, how do you deal with all of that? And occupational therapy helped me to heal myself. I mean, using the tools of that profession. And so, I think that was a saving grace. And we ask ourselves, why do we go into professions that we go in? And I know why I went into OT. It was a good fit for me, and God led me there. And He used me for all of the people that I've affected in my life because my career has been in mental health with children, with adolescents, with adults, and because I can relate to trauma and the things that the people are going through, the abandonment, the feeling less than, and then also being a Black woman who felt unaccepted by both races at times. It was called mulatto or a mutt, you know, because that's what a birate, but now it's biracial. But you know, at that time, the white family didn't want me, and the Black folks would, you know, you too light or you this and that and the other, whatever it is. But I learned to keep on and persevere. But one thing that my father and my family instilled in me was God, was faith. That through it all, He, you know, you know, when you, if you're a believer, you understand from the Bible, the story of Jesus, that he went through the ultimate sacrifice. And, you know, that's just what I went through was nothing. And there are people who've been through way worse than me, but I can relate to that. And when I'm dealing with my patients, I can bring those experiences to the table, and with my students as well. So I listen and I understand. And then I also try to bring that in my leadership to the department, because I set the tone. My spirit, my resilience, my joy, listening to everyone and trying to use my skills to build a great program and to move us forward, is really a gift that I think that I've developed over the years because of my experiences. So I'm just thankful, and I open myself to let him use me. And I'm an open book. So when people ask me things, I don't have a problem talking about it. And I've been told that I should write a book about some of my experiences, but I've been through a lot, but I'm here today and I'm happy to share, especially during Black History Month.
Doreen, if you were talking to your young self with everything you know now, or to someone coming up now, would you tell them something that you've learned through all of this? How would you encapsulate best advice to, you know, your younger version of yourself? Was it you have such faith and confidence, and you just put your life in God's hands. For someone who may not be a believer, what would you say to them to be as resilient and be as kind and strong a person that wants to give to others and not have suffered and
Mhm.
become lost because of all of that discrimination and oppression, frankly?
That's a good question. I just know that scripture says joy comes in the morning. We know that we all go through dark days. I mean, I'm not alone here. Everyone probably that's participating today can experience or have experienced something in their life. But if they could just hang on and hold on, that they'll be okay. Sometimes it looks like you will not make it, but I found support around me because I didn't do this on my own, and I'm not always strong, and I'm still not always strong. It's still always things happening. And I'm still going through things, and I still will until the end of my days. But I have a lot of support. So my faith community, my church family, my work family. I love my work family and my sorority. I'm telling you, my sorority sisters I have been there by my side through all of the things, and just my family itself. And so if you are vulnerable and you're open to the good and the bad, you know, I take all the accolades when our program does well, but if we're not doing well, I take on that too. I mean, what you gonna do? But I have to be a good listener and just understand that if you look for support and you just hang on, there is a brighter day. Yeah, make sweet lemonade out of lemons.
How about you? What are your thoughts?
Well, my thoughts are you have to believe in yourself, know that you can. Just because someone says that you can't, that doesn't mean that you can't. And if you are a believer, know who created you and know that he doesn't create junk so that you're not junk. And if you're not a believer, I suggest that you take a look and maybe, uh, you know, give them a word and let them try and find it for themselves. You don't want to force anything on anybody, but I can only tell you about my story. And my story is God is, and He's a helper and He's a keeper. And if you believe that, then you'll make it. But you got to put in the work. You can't, as my pastor say, put the book under your pillow and go to sleep on it and expect to get an A. You got to open the book. So you have to study. You have to do it. If you want to, be in management, look at the classes. What classes do you take to become a manager? You know, if you want to be a teacher, what classes do you take to become a teacher? It's not just going to come to you. You know, you got to work at it. Wasn't actually looking for the director position. However, I had gone to school. I had got my master's. So I was in line for if something like that was to open up for me. And when it opened up, you know, although I had become a little discouraged, I was wondering when was I going to use my master's, but I didn't know what God had. He had something for me. That manager's position that I thought I wanted and should have had, it wasn't mine. It wasn't for me. So don't get bitter over something that doesn't work out, because there's always something else better ahead. If you just stay patient and keep going, it's going to come to you, but you got to be patient, and you can't give up. So with that being said, I like to also to just give a word if I could. It says I wrote it down because I knew I would forget it, but it's one of my favorites. It says, "Weeping may endure for the night, but joy cometh in the morning." So that means you're going to have some hard times, but just keep on and keep on keeping on in there. And sooner or later, your breakthrough is going to come. But you can't give up, because sometimes we give up too soon and we don't get to our breakthrough. So we got to hang in there. And when I was being laid off, you know, I had to let my words, my action show what my words had been saying. You know, everyone know that I was in church and I went to church, la 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 la. They knew all of that. But when I got laid off, I could have been mad and, you know, pouting and whatever. You know, of course I was disappointed. I think my coworkers were more crying more than I was really, and that's honestly because I was telling them. I said, God got me," and those were my words. God got me. I didn't know what or when something was going to come through, but I knew it was coming through. So I stood on that, and I had a good support system. You know, my family, and I have to give a plug to the person, she's on here, and it makes me tearful, but I have to say it. She stood by me. She wasn't my blood sister, but she's my sister in Christ. And I'm telling you, some days she calls, "Sister, what's this?" She feed me. She you know, if I see her out, one time I was going out of town and she knew I didn't have any money. She said, "You going out of town?" I said, "Yes." So I'm getting out the car. Before I can get out the car, I'm not exaggerating. I don't know how much money, but it was at least about $300 looked like that she gave me to go out of town. So even though you have rough time, God will bring somebody in your path that will help you. And the things that you've done, the good that you've done, it's going to come back to you. Even with Sarah, she took a chance on me. I didn't have any experience as a director, but she took a chance. And I'm thankful and I'm grateful. And I tell her all the time, "Sarah, I don't want to disappoint you. I want you to be proud of me." So I work hard at this position. I don't take it lightly. I don't take anything lightly that anyone has done for me, especially the Lord, because I know it is because of Him that I am where I am. And if I could help someone else, I like to do it. I'm not, I'm not a selfish person. I'll brag on myself. I'm not selfish. You know, I'll give until I can't give anymore. I'll give what I don't have. I'll borrow to help someone else. But I believe that you have to be a giver. You have to be willing to help someone else out. You can't just take, you got to give too. So that's what I would say. Just be open and ready for, you know, your what you want may not be what's for you. So be open, be ready. So you know, if something comes up that you didn't think that you would want to do, step out on faith, do it. You know, take a chance, you know, and look, and all I can say is look at God, look what He will do. So that's what I would say to myself, a younger self, or someone, anyone, a believer or non-believer. I can only go by what I know, and that is, you know, God will make a way and He will help you, and just be open and ready for that opportunity when it comes.
You are naming the most um, important personal characteristics of an individual to persevere despite the challenges, have faith, reach out, share, be kind, be considerate, learn, work hard. These are things that I think any leader exhibits, and I would imagine any Black woman through your lives and your experiences uh, to have the grace to be that despite the challenge, I think is incredibly inspiring to me. Doreen, you've been a leader in so many ways professionally, in your community, in your family. What do you think leadership means? And do you want to talk about how you see leadership? And is Black woman leadership any different?
Thank you, Kathy. That's a good question. I take leadership, my role in leadership, very seriously because, as I said, I'm the face of the program. I carry the brunt of things. I try to make it seem easy and effortless. I've been told that because as I reach retirement, nobody want to do it. But because, you know, I think it's important and I take that job seriously. And I think being the face of the program is important because we give the impression to the world of what Wayne State OT is all about. And so when students see me or see us, you know, I want to put my best foot forward and represent us well. And I'm in a unique position to do that because I haven't always been the program director. I've been faculty. So I understand the faculty side. I understand what it means to be the director side, to be a clinician. And so bringing all those things to the table and being a student too, I can assess and understand and encourage what everybody's, you know, going through and try to be a good listener. And so I think being a good listener is a really good as a leader because we are the liaison between leadership like yourself and the students and the faculty. And so to make things run smoothly, I have to do that. But I use my my sense of humor. You know, I think sometimes when I'm nervous or I don't really know, I tell a joke or whatever, just because it helps me. That's a coping mechanism for me. But I think it's really important. And I've been here such a long time. And as I said, at one point, I was not only program director, but I was chair. And if I didn't have the mentorship as a leader, so I think as leaders, we need to be open to being led or to being mentors, to be taught. So you taught me things, Kathy, Howard taught me things, Suzetta, all those people before me taught me things. And so I have to be pliable like that clay we use, you know, so that we can be good leaders. I can't put my ego first. You know, I can't
It's
be.
not something that Dr. Head does at all. Absolutely not. That's not you. I want to ask you one more question down that lane, Doreen. This college and everyone on this call very much wants a college that is diverse, inclusive, accepting, and quite frankly, looks more like the community and the patients we serve. We strive for this. It's hard. You've lived it as a Black woman, a student, a program director, a leader in our college. You know, not even in like firmly, what must we do? What must we think about? How must we change to achieve that very important goal that we want, that seems so slow and moving? And you know, the last time we were talking together with Janetta, and I think Prudy was on that call too, you know, in this moment, like we're in Black History Month, but we have seen some very challenging, very sad, very wrong, unjust actions of police, etc. in America. How do we do something practical to lead and better in terms of the goals we want?
Well, I think it's important that people who are making the decisions, who are at the table to make decisions, are open that there's more people who look like me at the table making those decisions. And so it's been decades. I mean, I was one of just two people in my OT program back in the 80s at Eastern Michigan. But at Wayne County Community College, we were all Black, almost all Black. It was, I mean, it was just, so somebody gave me a chance. And we have to have people who are at the table. We have to be at the table. We have to be open to people and not afraid to invite somebody who doesn't look like us, who doesn't think like us, who doesn't have the same spiritual background as us or economic background. We have to be open because we have to look at the person. Some people saw a skill set in me and they look beyond my color. But the door has been closed in my face many times because of my color. So we have to have people there. And so I think it's important that we all have a voice, that we reach out to places that we normally wouldn't look, that we don't just decide on that person who on paper sounds good and they look like us, as they're going to homogenous, they're going to fit all in. So we have to, we have to be open for that.
And maybe more radical.
Yeah, why not? One thing that this past year has done has put a spotlight on so many things, the injustices, the systemic racism, all kinds of things that have happened. And I know in my life and in my career, I was passed over, I'm sure because of my color or who I am, and that who was admitted to those OT programs. I don't think I would have got into Eastern if it hadn't been for Ruth Hansen. I'm just saying, and still even today, Dr. Teref did a wonderful presentation on the disparities in the city, and in his pie chart for OTs across America, there was a slice this big looking at people of color in occupational therapy, and our profession is over 100 years old. So that's saying something.
Change is too slow, too slow. Janetta, I've been catching up with Doreen here face to face, and I always love to listen. I want you to chime in and I'll slip back, and people in the chat who have questions or a comment for Janetta or Doreen, please pop it into the chat and we'll make sure your comments and questions are heard too. Janetta?
Well, like Doreen, I think RT radiation therapy is even smaller for Blacks. There, I could count them on my hand when I was in school. I think it was just two in my class. I was in really two graduating classes because I ended up going part-time the second half, and the first half I was the only Black. It was 14 students, and I was the only Black out of the, oh no, two. It was two of us in that class, and then two in the second class. So I don't know. I guess we have to be that pebble to make that ripple effect. So you just have to just stand out, stand strong, and as Doreen say, now that we're at the table to sort of speak, try and give opportunities to those, not just because they look like us, but because they deserve to be there. And sometimes deserving to be there doesn't always get you there. So if I could help someone that looks like me, or encourage them to come into the program, because I'll tell you, when I went through the program, I didn't encourage people to come to Wayne State or get into radiation therapy. I didn't, I felt like I was treated horribly, and I didn't recommend radiation therapy to anyone or Wayne State. But now that things have changed and evolved, and I'm here as a director, when I see someone, hey, go warrior, warrior strong, and now I feel like I could say yes, although I love being a radiation therapist, I love being a radiation therapist, but now I feel like I can encourage, why don't you think about radiation therapy? And plus, not only that, our job market had wasn't as good a few years back, but now it's opening up. So I feel comfortable and confident in telling somebody to come into radiation therapy because I know that they'll get a job too now. So, you don't, you want to encourage, but you want to be honest about, what they're going to face, honest about if there are jobs out there, you just, you need to be honest, not just get them into the program. So, but I have a pride for being a radiation therapist. I have pride for being a warrior. So, yes, I'm ready. And I'm just thankful for this opportunity to be able to to encourage someone that looks like me to become a radiation therapist. And I think that although we had it hard, or it was hard for me when I came through, I do think that it has become somewhat change. Small changes have occurred, so it's better than when I started off 30 years ago. So I think it's a great field, and anybody that wants to be a radiation therapist, hey, come on in and come to Wayne State.
We had a question from Elisa.
Yes, I just wanted to make a comment. So thank you both, for your honesty. It's very enlightening what you both were talking about. And you both said that you had people in your life that said, don't go on, or maybe they were discouraging in a lot of different ways. And then you said that you had people in your life that helped you. But I wanted to make a comment because, really wasn't touched on. And I know it must have really hurt and it must have been really painful for you to hear those things. We don't think you need to go on, or we're going to pass you over. And that's the part that I think people don't really realize as professors and instructors and mentors, how much words can really hurt people and students. And I just feel that telling anybody that they can't do it when they have a desire, and I know both of you say, from prayers and God, but really it was you had something that was deep inside you, a fire, let's say, inside of you that made you go on. But people are struggling besides with race. Maybe they're struggling with their sexuality, with anything, that's different. And I had a parent come to me one time and said, "Oh, my son will never be anything. He's got a low IQ." I'm like, you know what? Give me time to work with him. Sometimes it's just how you approach somebody. And I just feel like people that maybe were in your shoes in the past that were told, don't do this, don't go on, don't apply. My heart goes out to that because you were lucky that you had people that pushed you forward, or that were mentoring you, but some people don't. And I just feel that we need more people to address how you really felt inside by hearing, those words. You're both very positive, but I know it was a bad time.
I guess even though you hear hurtful words, but I'm still going to tell you, Elisa, that fire to me was lit by God. Still, there was a fire, but He lit that fire, and because those words my grandmother put in me, she taught me that I can do all things through Christ Jesus who strengthens me. And those were the words that rang inside of me, even when I heard those hurtful words, and even when I had a teacher. It was in the master's program. I think it was a statistics course. I probably blocked it out, but I know I think it was statistics. And he told me, you might as well drop the class because, yes, it was statistics. It's statistically impossible for you to get a B in this class. The instructor told me that. Well, as I've said, don't tell me what I can't do because I'm going to show you I can do it. And so I thought about it. I said, well, should I drop it? And again, for me, it's faith. I go and I pray about it. And my answer was to keep going. Don't give up. So it's a little bit of being stubborn too, because once I start something, I like to see it through to the end. So I said, well, I'm going to take the class. I'm going to keep going. And I got to be out of that class. And this is would he be a statistician? told me it was statistically impossible for me to get a B out of his class. Well, I got that B out of his class. So, hey, all I can say is, hard work. And for me, I still go back to prayer. And if, yes, it does hurt when you hear people tell you that you can't make it. And I've even heard it, as a young child, from family, and it's hurtful. But still, the same person had already told me that I can do all things. So that was planted, that seed was planted. And once that seed is planted, and some people that if they're not nurtured, or they don't have someone, it doesn't have to be a family member, it could be a complete stranger, just like yourself. You saw something in that child that the mother didn't see, and you work with that child. And I'm sure that that child did well because you saw something in that child. So it doesn't have to be your family, it could be anyone that sees something in you. But for me, we were raised to believe that we could do, and that we were never alone. That's what we were taught. We were never alone. Not w- talking about human. We're talking about that spirit, that God. You're never alone. You always have someone. So even when friends, family forsake you, this to me, I can't get away from it. I still got to give it back to God, because to me, that's who sustains me, and I will not deny what He has done for me. So yes, I got a fire, but that fire was lit by the Lord. So for me, that's what I go on. And for those that don't, have that that bond or that spiritual guidance, I don't know. I can't speak for them because I've always had it. But even if I met someone with that, I would give it my all. If I don't believe in telling someone what they can't do. I try to to encourage, no matter what it looks like. Because sometimes we just look at the outside, and we don't look at the inside, or look at the potential, to know that, given, if you give this child or this person the opportunity, what could happen. You never know if you don't give them a chance, or you don't try and work with them. I even had a teacher at my nephew's school. I went up, he was having a hard time reading, she's bamming on the desk, hurry up, hurry up. I said, that's not going to help him read any faster. I said, you're taking away his confidence. And she said, oh, I don't mean to do that. I said, well, that's what you're doing. And then she proceeded to tell me that, well, we talked a little bit, and she said, well, let's just face it. Some kids just aren't gonna be anything. This is a teacher. So, if you have that kind of mindset, and you're in a position to maybe help a child, then yeah, they're not going to be anything, because you've already made up your mind that they're not going to be anything. So why do anything to help? So you got to be willing to help, and take a chance, because I feel like people have taken a chance on me, and I'm willing to take a chance on someone that wants, that's trying to do better for themselves.
And that's why we love you, Janetta. And as program director, you are a fierce protectress for your flock of faculty, staff, and your students. And that fierce loyalty and uplifting and pushing forward, not holding back, comes through loud and clear. Marissa, I know we could keep talking, and I see a few questions. I'm looking to you for guidance on a couple of more and wrap up.
Yep, sounds good. Azalea, would you like to ask your question?
Azalea. I'm in the RTT program. I'm a junior. I was just wondering if you guys have ever experienced like racism or racist innuendos, and were able to use your position of leadership to teach about racism, and how that went, and how they responded.
I can respond. I wanted to also agree what Janetta said, but when we are faced with racism, it does hurt. And if you're through it all your life, you put up a defense. You know, you have to learn how to protect yourself. So self-preservation is very important. And so I've found ways to continue to love myself in spite of what other people say, and use moments as teachable moments. Maybe laugh it off, or maybe ignore, or maybe walk away, or maybe at a time that I can say something, I might have a little something snarky to say back or whatever. But, you know, I don't let too much get past me, or I don't entertain it, because if I do that, then I'm no better than you. But it does hurt, you know, but I try to take the high road, you know. When they go low, we go high, right? Isn't that what our first lady said? So, but we understand, and we can see that, and we still see it today all around us. And so we have to take those steps to denounce it when we can, to not feed into it when we can, call it out when we can. And I do talk about it in class. You know, my students know I'm an open book. So, you know, those are teachable moments.
All right, I think we have time for one more question. Haley B, would you like to ask your question?
Yeah, thank you. So you guys both talked about how failure isn't an option for Black women sometimes because we don't give them the same freedom to fail that we give other people. And this question's for either one of you. Do you have any ideas how we as individuals or our college as a whole can better support our Black peers in graduate programs?
I think it's important that we treat everyone equally, give everyone the same opportunities. And when we understand the backstory of not only people from my culture, from other cultures as well, who are underserved and who are discounted or whatever, when we take that off the table and try to level the playing field and give everybody an opportunity, then I think we'll all move forward. And so I thank you for bringing this up, Haley, is very important. When you see it, then you step in and you do your part, and I'll do my part, and things will get better. And when you see one of your friends or a coworker say or do something, don't sit back and laugh at it. Or, and I'm not speaking to you in particularly, but you know, when something happens, be a voice.
I agree with Doreen. I haven't been here, well, this is going on my third year, so I'm just, I'm not really, I guess I haven't really faced that on in the college as a leader. But in class, you know, I try whenever we have our diversity courses, I try and make it where we learn about each other, because the more we learn about each other, you know, then you find out we're not that much different. I wish I could read a poem that one of my students, I think it was a student, Glendy, wrote a poem. It was a beautiful poem about flowers and how different the flowers are, but together we make such a beautiful bouquet. So there,
Yeah.
yes, there are differences
Amen.
between us, but yet and still there are so many things that you know, we can find that we all like and share. There's a bond that we all share, and especially being in the healthcare field, because most of us in the healthcare field, we want to help. So you know, you that is a common bond that we share, and that's helping. And why not help one another? You know, practice what we preach, to sort of
Mhm.
speak. You know, you say you want to help, you see
Yeah.
someone in distress, not just in the hospital, anywhere, help them if you can. You know,
Mhm.
don't just sit back and say, oh, that's not my problem, that's somebody else's problem. It's all of our problem. If we want to make a change, it's not
Yeah.
going to happen by just one person. So, you know, we each got to do our part to make things better. And that's not just, you know, black or white, it's all of us together that's going to
Mhm.
make the change happen.
Right. And in my classes, there's two classes that I do things. I celebrate culture through our food, and we also have a hair care lecture, because, you know, growing up, people always want to touch my hair and what's going on with your hair. And so we talk about our hair and our dispel some of the myths, you know, because I thought that white girls could wash and go, but I found out, no, that's not it either. And so we have to understand each other, and by talking, we can learn. Talking about it, we can learn.
Thank you both.
You're welcome.
I want to thank you both as well. and thank everyone on this call who participated and I think benefited from the experiences, the lived experiences, the advice, the hurt, but yet the strength and the faith and the optimism, and quite frankly, the wisdom to take these adverse experiences that we all have in life, some more than others, but turn them to something that you grow from and you contribute back to improving life for everyone around us. So yay, big hearts. If I could hit the right button, I would fill my screen. Big hearts, lots of clapping, lots of thank you. To you, Doreen, to you, Janetta, thank you so much for being a part of Black History Month, sharing such personal reflections from your own life. That's how we grow and be strong. So have a wonderful Friday, everyone. Thank you again for your participation, and we will look forward to several more sessions before we're done with Black History Month. And again, really pleased to see so many of your faces on this day.